Okay, good evening everyone. No, today we will discuss our part 1 of the assessment of the central and peripheral vascular system. I am your host, Mark Justin Lapidario, and I will be discussing today the anatomy of the heart and subjective data. Now, let us start, no? So as to not waste time. Now, the anatomy of the heart. If you remember class from your anatomy and physiology, no, that our heart is divided into four chambers. Okay, we have our right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and then your left ventricle. Now, if you remember class from your anatomy and physiology, no, our atrium, also known as our atria, these are what we call our receiving chambers. Okay? Receiving chambers. Now, because they are receiving chambers, they will be the one to receive blood. Obviously, di ba? Heart man. Okay? Our ventricles in the meantime, class, no? In the meantime, oh no, our ventricles are what we call our pumping chambers. Okay, ayan. Okay, pumping chambers. Maybe meaning they are the ones that will contract. Okay, these are the ones that will contract to push blood. Okay. Now, aside from that class, no? Aside from that, our heart is also divided into two. Either right, okay? Right, okay? Either right, ayan, right, or left. Right or left. Now, class, to simplify as much as possible, class, no? I just want you to remember this, okay? I want you to remember this. Our heart, diba? It is divided into two parts. Your right side and your left side. When it comes to your right side, class, the only type of blood that will pass through your right side, that should pass through your right side, is unoxygenated blood. Okay, ayan, unoxygenated blood. Whereas, class, in your left side, class, the only type of blood that should pass is oxygenated blood. Okay? As such, class, no? As such, class, the right side will send blood towards what we call our pulmonary circulation. Our right side will send blood towards what we call our ayan, hindi maklaro. Okay. Pulmonary circulation. It will send blood towards our lungs. Okay? Whereas our left side, class, will send blood towards the rest of the system, otherwise known as our systemic circulation. Ayan. Systemic circulation. Okay. So, muna siya, no? Systemic circulation. Now, aside from our atrium, ventricles, and the division between right and left, no, there are also other notable factors when it comes to the heart. Other notable structures, no. First is our valves, which we will discuss later. Okay, our valves. After that, we also have our major or great blood vessels, namely our pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, and our aorta. Okay, ayan. Sige. That is just set up for later. Okay. Aside from that, class, no, when we are talking about the heart has four major functions. Four functions, okay, of the heart. Number one is it will generate blood pressure. Okay? Okay? Contractions, class, no? Contractions. Okay? Contractions push blood and creates pressure. Okay? Creates pressure. Another function is what we call routing blood. Okay? Routing blood. Okay? there is what we call separation of chambers. Separation of chambers. Now, sir, what do you mean by separation of chambers? When you look at the anatomy of the heart, as you can see, there is a major split right here in the middle. Kita dire. Okay? Follow the yellow pen here, around here, this part. Okay? Class, we call this separation, no? Our atrioventricular septum. This separates the left and the right parts of the heart. Okay? This separates the left and the right side of the heart. Meaning, it also separates, no, the oxygenated and unoxygenated blood. Okay? That's why there is routing of blood. Okay? The third function, class, the third function is that it ensures one-way flow. Ensures one-way flow. Now, this is caused by what we call our valves. Kini mga valves. Kini, ayan, valves. Okay? The valves, class, if you remember from your anatomy, no? They will open and close, no? Depending on what the current situation is. Now, typically, class, no? The valves are shaped like this. Panaw, ha? The valves are shaped like this so that when blood enters, it cannot go back. Okay? It cannot go back. Thus, ensuring that there is no backflow. Now, backflow is very dangerous because backflow, no, is the primary pathophysiology of what we call our heart failure. Okay? Prevent backflow. Ayan. Prevent backflow. And lastly, class, it regulates blood supply. Okay? It regulates blood supply. Namutan na ka, sir, how does it regulate blood supply? There are two primary mechanisms. The first is the rate, okay? Otherwise known as our heart rate. And the next is our, what we call this, we call intensity. When we say intensity, how strong it contracts or the force. Okay? For example, class, if the heart rate of one patient is 60 and the other is, let's say, for example, 100, obviously, the person who has a heart rate of 100 has more blood output. Okay? More blood output compared to kanang 60 lang. Di ba? Because his heart, no, is pumping more blood. Di ba? Very understandable, very easy. No? Next is our kinesiya, ayan. Our valves, no? Our valves, class, it's very simple. In order to understand valves, no, you have to remember that there are two types of valves, mainly among which is our first one, our atrioventricular valves. Now, from the name itself, class, atrioventricular, it connects both the atrium and the ventricle. Now, in our heart, there are two atrioventricular valves. First is our tricuspid valve. Okay? This one here. Kana. Tricuspid valve. Next is our mitral valve. This one. As you can see, both of them connect the atrium and a ventricle. Both of them connect an atrium and a ventricle. The mitral valve is also known as your bicuspid valve. Okay? Bicuspid valve. As I've said, no, the valves prevent backflow. Ayan, backflow na naman. Next is our semilunar valves. Now, class, our semilunar valves are associated, no? These are valves associated with a great vessel. Okay? They are associated with a great vessel. For example, class, our first semilunar valve, and the reason why they are named semilunar valve is because they are crescent shaped. Okay? They are what we call crescent shaped. Ayan, crescent shaped. Now, class, for example, the first of our semilunar valves is our pulmonary valve, which is found at the right side of the heart. Okay? The pulmonary valve is, okay, listen, associated with your pulmonary artery. Diba? It is associated with your pulmonary artery. The next, no? What we call this, the next semilunar valve is our aortic valve. Our aortic valve is found at the left side of the body. Okay? This one, if you can see here, kinesiya, this one, the one in yellow. Okay? And it is associated with what we call our aorta. It is associated with what we call our aorta. Okay? Ayan. So, mo na siya, no? Once again, the valves are there to prevent one-way, to ensure one-way flow. It is there to prevent backflow. Ayan. Okay. Next, class, is our layers of the heart. Now, class, there are typically, according to the old book, that we used for anatomy and physiology, they said that there are 3 layers, but I would like to include the pericardium one with an asterisk because it is not specifically a layer that is directly connected to the heart. Okay? First is our endocardium. The endocardium, class, the endocardium is the innermost layer. Innermost layer. Okay? It is continuous with our endothelial lining of blood vessels. Okay? Blood vessels. Now, say pasabot ni mo, sir. When we say the endocardium, class, when we say it is the innermost layer, it is the one that is directly in contact with blood. Okay? Directly in contact with blood. Now, next is our myocardium. The myocardium is the middle layer. Okay? Middle layer. Middle layer. And it is also the thickest layer. The reason why it is the thickest layer is because it is mostly, okay, put a big star, cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle. Ayan. Cardiac muscle. If you remember from your anatomy class, this allows the heart to pump. Okay? This allows the heart to pump. Ayan. Next is our epicardium. Now, epicardium, class, it is the outermost layer directly attached to the heart. Okay? It is the outermost layer directly attached to the heart. Okay, ayan. And lastly, sir, sabi mo sa amin, sir, it is not part of, specifically, technically, it is not part of the layers of the heart, but I just wanted to include it here para hindi makalimutan. Okay? The pericardium, class, is a loose-fitting sac. Okay? Loose-fitting sac. Kung bali, it is like a covering, that surrounds the heart. Okay? Surrounds the heart. The pericardium, class, houses and produces what we call our pericardial fluid. Pericardial fluid. Pericardial fluid, class, if you do not remember from your anatomy and physiology, this will allow frictionless movement of the heart. Ayan. Frictionless movement of the heart so that there is no pain, no? But if you remember this, no, when you reach your medical surgical nursing, you will encounter diseases, no, such as our pericarditis, which is the inflammation of the pericardium, wherein there, no, during the inflammation of the pericardium, the patient might actually feel, no, some pain when the heart is contracted. Ayan. Next class is our heart conduction system. Now, as I've mentioned, no, I want to highlight once again cardiac muscle. Now, class, your cardiac muscle, class, no, your cardiac muscle class is special. Okay, the cardiac muscle is special mainly because it has the ability to number one, spontaneously generate what we call this electrical impulses. Okay, electrically generate electrical impulses and conduct it through the heart. Ayan, and conduct it through the heart. Now, class, listen. Okay, since it is spontaneous, okay, that means, class, no, that most of the control of the heart is housed inside, no, the structures of the heart. Unlike your lungs, no, diba, if you remember from our last topic, our lungs are being controlled by what we call our medulla oblongata. Our heart, however, it is being controlled mostly by itself. Okay, however, there are external factors, like for example, hormones, okay, that could affect how the heart functions. Maybe it could increase its rate or decrease its rate, so on and so forth. Now, class, here is what you need to remember. Okay, hinumdumi ni class from here until the end of time kasi mag-ECG pa ta. Okay, always remember, class, send a big bounding pulse. Ayan, makutanang ka na ako, sir. Say, pasabot naman na, sir. What do you mean by say send a big bounding pulse? This is our heart conduction system, class. Para hindi nyo makalimutan, class, S stands for our sinoatrial node. Okay, SA node. Okay, ay, iris to a red. Mas klaro ang red. Okay, SA node. Next is our atrioventricular node. AV node. Next is our big letter B, bundle of His. Okay, and lastly, class, is our letter P. The letter P, our Purkinje. Okay, Purkinje fibers. Okay, Purkinje fibers. Now, it works like this, class, no? If in your mind, no, it's still pointless. Now, class, let us start first with our SA node. Our SA node is also known as our, what we call this, pacemaker. Okay, pacemaker. Okay, our SA node will generate electrical impulses, no? Our SA node will generate electrical impulses at a rate of 60 to 100 beats per minute. Now, if that is familiar, class, that is the same as our heart rate. That's why it's called a pacemaker, because it sets the pace for heart rate. Ayan, galing, di ba? Okay, so let's start with a discussion, no? This is our SA node, the one in black. Tanawan ninyo, ha? That is your SA node. Now, as I've said, no, it has the ability to spontaneously generate electrical impulses. Okay, so what happens is this. Okay, the SA node will generate impulses, electrical impulses, and they will send those electrical impulses first to your atrium, your left atrium and your right atrium. But it will also send those impulses to what we call our next node, our AV node. Okay, they will send it to the AV node. Okay, now class, when the AV node receives it, there is a slight delay when it comes to conduction, in the microseconds, no? So in the microseconds. Okay, so follow the green, ha? The green is the electrical conduction. Ayan, now it reached the AV node. It also goes to your atrium. Okay, it also goes to your atrium. Now, okay, the AV node is the one that will receive, no? It will be the one to receive initial pace. Okay, that's why it is also known as our secondary pacemaker. Okay, secondary pacemaker. However, the SA node is still the primary, no? Mas importante gyud siya. Next class is the impulse will then travel after a short delay to what we call the bundle of His. Okay? Left kinesiya dire. This one that is the bundle of His. Okay? The bundle of His, okay, separates into left and right. Okay? So class, when the electrical impulse reaches the bundle of his, it will be separated into left and right. Aminam ha? This is the crucial part. Mano siya ha? Bundle of his. Ayan. Now, it is traveling down, okay, very fast class because this is electricity. Okay? And then once it reaches this point, okay, the one that curves up, kini siya dire, this one, also known as your Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fibers. Okay, Purkinje fibers. Okay, once it reaches this part, it will force your ventricles. You remember the ventricles? Katong the lower part, the pumping chambers. It will force the ventricles to contract. And when we say contract, they will actually contract. Karabitong mo compress, so they will contract on itself, thus forcing blood to move. Diba? Thus forcing blood to move. Now, okay, that's forcing blood to move. So, mo na siya, no? Okay? And the cycle repeats itself again. That's why it's called a cardiac conduction system or cardiac conduction cycle. Because this entire process happens at a rate of 60 to 100 beats per minute. Okay, ayan. Cardiac cycle. So, mo to siya, no? The SA node will send an impulse to your atria. The atria will receive it after a small, the atria. SAV node will receive it after a short delay. The AV node will then send it to your bundle of His and then send it to your Purkinje fibers. Once it reaches the Purkinje fibers, the heart will now, or the ventricles will now contract. Okay? Ventricles will now contract. After a few moments, class, it will relax and the cycle starts all over again at a rate of, once again, 60 to 100 beats per minute. Okay? So, sa Purkinje fibers, class, no? Once it reaches here, ventricles contract. Ayan, ventricles contract. Next is what we call our systole and diastole. Okay, resata ha. Ako reson. Shit. Now class, no, if you remember from your anatomy, again, okay, anatomy na sadta. Okay, we have what we call a diastole and a systole. Now, if you remember from your anatomy class, no, or a discussion in blood pressure, the systole is the point wherein it is the highest pressure after or during contraction, whereas the diastole is the lowest point of pressure during the relaxation of ventricles. Okay? So diastole class is the relaxation of ventricles. Okay? Ventricles. And systole is the contraction of ventricles. Okay. Ayan. Now, class, it looks like this, ha? Another term for this class, no, when we say diastole, is it is what we call filling. Okay? Whereas, systole is what we call emptying. Now, sir, maglibog ka, sir. Ano man na, sir? Sige, let us start with systole. Systole sa taha. Okay, assume that this blue mark, kini siya, it is blood. Okay, blood na siya. Now, class, let's say, for example, class, your blood is in the ventricles. Asa inyong blood? Nasa ventricles. Actually, this is a bad image for this. Sakata, kare. Sakata, kare. Ayan, ito yung reason. Okay, let's say, for example, class, the blood is in the ventricles. Now, class, if you remember, if you read, systole is the contraction of the ventricles and it empties. Okay, so during systole, class, what happens is this. Okay, the ventricles will contract. Okay, they will contract. Okay, and once they contract, kung mo contract na sila, class, they will push the blood. Okay, pamina mo, they will push the blood towards the opening. Okay, towards the pulmonary artery in this instance. While they are contracted, class, this the tricuspid valve will close, preventing one-way flow. So, ang ending, class, is that the blood will now enter what we call our pulmonary artery. Thus, ang atong right ventricle is now empty. That's why we call it emptying. Okay. Now, listen. For diastole, class, it is the opposite. Okay, let's say assume that the blood is in your right atrium. Asa yung blood? Nasa right atrium. Now, when the ventricles relax, okay, when the ventricles relax, okay, nirelax na siya, no? What happens is this valve, no, it will open. Okay, it will open and it will stay open. Because it is open, class, the right atrium, no, through the power of pressure, and through the power of what we call osmosis, no? Osmosis from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. That blood will move from the right atrium into your right ventricle. That's why diastole is called filling, because we are filling ato gipon, no, ang atong right ventricle. Ayan, we are filling our right ventricle. Ayan. Sheesh. Next is our ECG basics. Now, class, for ECG basics, let us not discuss this. No, ang tendency man is ECG will be discussed once again when you reach your level 3. Ayan, pag abot ninyo third year. Now, ang problema sa ECG, class, no, the problem with ECG is that it is very complicated, no? Diba? Nga na, imagine na, class, when you reach third year, mag-drawing na lang si ayaw nga na. Wala na sila ni mo. Okay, tell me, unsa man na sakit? So, may tubag ni mo, sir, drawing man na, sir, di man na sakit, diba? So, ang tendency, no, is, it's too complicated, no? And I know that this will be discussed when you reach your third year in much broader detail. Supposedly, mo lang ini siya introduce, but I'm gonna discuss, the basics of the basics. Okay, ayan. Let's go. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready to discuss ECG? Okay, sige nga na siya, class. Okay, now, I will use red. Okay? We will discuss the parts of a wave first. Okay, an ECG wave. First is our P, next is our QRS, and then our T. So, ito isuot sa kilid, ha? Okay, let's write it on the side. Our P wave. Ayan, P wave. Our P wave is also known as what we call our atrial depolarization. Okay? Atrial depolarization. Meaning, it occurs during what we call it is the time wherein there is conduction of impulses throughout the atria or atrium. Okay, conduction of impulses throughout the atria. Next is our QRS complex. Okay, complex, also known as, kini siya class, muni siya class ang QRS, kini. The big one, the big wave. Kita mo ni, this one. Okay. The QRS complex, also known as our ventricular. Okay, ventricular depolarization. Okay, and this is the actual contraction, okay, contraction of the ventricles. Okay, this is the actual contraction of the ventricles. Ayan, shit.